Parker, we're also joined by Arkadi Gerney, who is Senior Vice President of the Center for American Progress. He previously worked as Special Advisor and First Deputy Criminal Justice Coordinator to New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg and managed Mayors Against Illegal Guns, a national coalition that Mayor Bloomberg co-chairs. Arkadi Gerney, talk about what you think most needs to happen right now. The conversation on television mainly these days is you're talking about mentally ill people or criminals. They're going to get around the laws. So whatever regulations you put in place, law-abiding people will abide by them, and they won't be armed. And then the criminals and the mentally ill will be armed, and they'll just gun them down.
Well, thanks, Amy. First, I just want to offer my condolences to Andy Parker. He's just shown incredible courage in making his voice heard and under, of course, extremely difficult circumstances. So thank you for that. But I think as to the question, if you look at the United States and compare it to other countries, we have normal levels of crime, violent crime, compared to other advanced countries. We have mental health disorders at normal rates compared to other advanced countries, but we have levels of murder and gun murders that are way out of line with other highly developed countries. If you look within the United States, you see that the states with the strongest gun laws have lower rates of gun homicides and gun suicides, significantly lower rates than the states with the weakest gun laws. And study after study has shown that. So the idea that there is nothing that we can do about it is just false. And if you look at other challenges that we faced in our country, for example, car accidents, we've been able to make cars in the last 60 years 5 times safer. For every mile that a person drives in the United States today, they are 5 times less likely to die than they would have been 55 or 60 years ago. And that wasn't one intervention. It was a whole bunch of measures, from seat belts to airbags to drunk driving laws to culture change to better road signage. But we found a way to both preserve our car culture but make it much, much safer. And that's what we need to do with guns.
And Arkadi Gerney, you've talked about that it's not just the mass shootings that occur, obviously, that get all the attention in the media, but it's the day in, day out gun violence that occurs in America and that rarely gets much coverage at all outside the local area in which it happens. Could you talk about that?
Yes. I mean, I think what happened to Alison Parker was absolutely terrible. But had it not been broadcast on TV, 2 people getting killed is not national news in the United States, and it happens every day. In fact, 33 people are murdered with guns every single day in the United States. That's a Virginia Tech scale mass shooting. Virginia Tech shooting in 2007 was the most deadly mass shooting in U.S. history, but it's happening across the country every single day. It's very hard for our politicians and for the national media to pay attention to it, to bring life to these stories, and we tend to only pay attention to these spectacular shootings, these mass shootings that are, of course, really awful. But underlying that is the everyday gun violence, which is just taking an incredible toll. Adds up to 11,000 or 12,000 gun murders a year, and another 21,000 gun suicides and accidents. Put it all together, that's 33,000 Americans every year we are losing to gun violence. It's just an incredible number, and the idea that we can't do something about it is wrong. All the evidence suggests that we can do something about it, and we're not going to get that number to 0. But if we can reduce it by 1%, that's saving 330 lives. If we can reduce it by 10%, that's saving 3,300 lives a year. That's as many people died on 9/11.
Arkadi Gerney, you have your own story about why you are so interested in this issue.
Well, yeah. I mean, my father died when I was young. My mother was planning to get remarried, and the person she was going to get remarried to was shot, murdered in a random act of violence. I think that the remarkable thing in the U.S. is that it is just simply not uncommon for Americans to know someone who has been shot and killed. It happens so frequently that so many people are touched by it. The toll of gun violence disproportionately affects some people, some parts of our country, some demographics within the country. It is a disproportionately impacts young people. It disproportionately impacts communities of color. But if you look at it all, it affects all kinds of people: young, old, black, white. And there's something we can do about it. And you know, I think we want to try to spare more people from the experience that Andy Parker's going through, and so many people have gone through, of seeing a loved one lost to this.
And could you talk about the grassroots movement that you became a part of with former Mayor Michael Bloomberg when the mayors of cities across the country, faced with the failure of Congress to act, began banding together to try to do something about gun violence?
Well, I think the politics of guns is in the process of changing. And the movement for stronger gun laws is growing much, much stronger, and has been growing stronger over several years. But when I started working on this issue in 2006, there was barely any support, even among Democrats in Washington, to do anything. And really among elected officials, the only stakeholders who were ready to sort of put their political capital and themselves on the line tended to be mayors, because mayors are held accountable for crime. They saw what it was doing to their cities, and so Mayor Bloomberg and Tom Menino, the mayor of Boston, built this coalition. It's grown to more than 1,000 mayors. But what we see is that now the movement for stronger gun laws is very diverse. It's mayors, it's moms, it's all kinds of people coming out of the woodwork. And we are seeing at the state level progress in many states, not just blue states, but purple states like Colorado, which strengthened its gun laws after Newtown. We've seen ballot initiatives like in Washington State last year, where 60% of voters voted for universal background checks.
Arkadi Gerney, we're going to lose Andy Parker, the satellite, to him at his home in Collinsville, Virginia, in just a second. I wanted to ask, are you thinking of running for public office? I think of Carolyn McCarthy in Long Island, whose husband was killed in the Long Island Railroad massacre many years ago. She went to her congressman. He said, he's not for gun control. And she said, then I'm going to replace you. And she did. Are you thinking about this? Andy Parker.
Are you asking me? I'm
yes.
sorry. Oh, yeah. Am I? I'm sorry. Am I thinking about running?
Yes.
Or no, I'm not. I feel like that I'm better served as an advocate and an activist. You never say never, but that's. I feel like my role at this point is to find the people to replace these people that are not going to come to our way of thinking on this issue. Well, so that's I've got no plans at this point.
Well, we'll continue the conversation. I want to thank you, and again, our condolences. Andy Parker, the father of Alison Parker, who, along with her cameraman, Adam Ward, were gunned down as they were broadcasting live on television at her television station, WDBJ. They were outside interviewing the head of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce when they were killed.